"It's just for treatment, Mom, I swear." That was what he said last week, over the phone, his voice shaking just enough to sound real. Tonight, I opened the email by accident. The subject line said, "Trip to Monte Carlo confirmed." My name wasn't on the passenger list, just his and hers. She even ordered champagne for the flight. The money had been in a separate account, insurance from his father, meant to cover the hospital, the injections, maybe even that new trial I'd been too scared to hope for. He cried when he asked, held my hand like a little boy again, said if the deal worked out, I'd never have to see another hospital chair again. I believed him. No, I needed to. Now the balance is nearly zero. The clinic called to confirm I'm dropping from the list. I told them it was a mistake. I didn't tell them it was a choice. His. The phone is ringing. His name is on the screen. But I already froze the cards. I already changed the locks. And if he thinks I'm going to fund his fairy tale while I rot quietly, he doesn't know who raised him. If you've ever handed over your last chance at comfort just to feel needed, if you've ever been called ungrateful by the very people who emptied you, leave a comment. You're not alone, even when your own blood makes you feel like a burden. Subscribe if you've ever had to survive your own family's betrayal in silence. My name is Ellen. I'm 60 years old, and I'm trying to remember what it feels like to want tomorrow. Mark died a month ago, 32 days to be exact. I've been counting the mornings, like someone watching the tide come in, hoping it forgets to go back out. Pancreatic cancer. That cruel, quiet kind that doesn't announce itself until you're already out of time. We found out in March. He was gone by the end of July. I keep trying to replay our last normal day. I think it was a Thursday. He asked for pancakes. He hadn't eaten pancakes in years, said they made him feel too full, too sleepy, but that day he wanted them. I burned the first batch. He laughed anyway. That laugh. I didn't know it would be the last one that sounded like him. After that, everything was hospital white and too quiet. They say it's peaceful, the end. I don't know who they are, but they're wrong. It's not peaceful. It's clinical. You sign forms, you nod at nurses, you answer calls from insurance people who sound like they're trying not to cry, but really just want to finish their shift. The life insurance policy was something Mark got back in '96. He almost canceled it once, said it was a waste of money if I go first. I made him keep it. Let me die first, I used to joke. You won't know what to do with all that paperwork. Well, I was wrong about that too. The check came in a stiff envelope, heavy cardstock, certified mail. It was sitting in the mailbox next to a coupon for 20% off new tires and a political flyer with someone's face I didn't recognize. I almost threw it out. I brought it inside, set it on the table, walked past it 12 times that day. It's still there, untouched. $382,000, neatly typed, cold as steel. I know I should do something with it, bank it, invest it, whatever it is people like me are supposed to do when their husband dies and leaves them more money than they know what to do with. But I don't want it. I didn't want the trade. Mark for money, laughter for paperwork, warmth for a direct deposit. I haven't told anyone the full amount. Daniel knows there was a payout, but I didn't tell him how much. He came over 3 days after the funeral, brought Chinese takeout, said he didn't want me to be alone. We ate in silence. He asked if I needed help with anything. I said no. I wanted to say, please just sit with me. Don't plan, don't fix, just stay. But I didn't. Daniel used to fall asleep on Mark's chest when he was a baby. Mark would hum Springsteen and rock him like it was sacred. They used to go camping together. Daniel was always afraid of bears. Mark told him, "If a bear comes, I'll scare him off with your mom's meatloaf." That made Daniel laugh for years. He doesn't laugh like that anymore, not around me. He mentioned something at dinner, said he was looking into an opportunity, didn't say what. Then he glanced at the envelope, the one I hadn't moved from the table. He didn't ask about it, not directly, but his eyes said everything. He looked at it like it might solve something for him. I feel guilty even thinking this. He's my son. I love him. But ever since Mark died, there's this pause between us. Like I'm supposed to become something new, something useful now that I'm alone. It terrifies me. This sense that I've shifted from mother to resource. I should deposit the check. That's what everyone says. Secure my future, plan my treatments, talk to someone about next steps. But I don't know what I want my future to look like anymore. Without Mark, the days feel like placeholders, moments just waiting for sleep. I sleep with the TV on now, old cooking shows, reruns of game shows, voices that don't ask anything of me. I leave Mark's slippers by the bed, not because I think he'll come back, because the space looks too clean without them. The funeral was small. Daniel said that's what Mark would have wanted. I think Daniel just didn't want to call too many people. His wife, Amanda, was there. She barely looked at me, wore sunglasses the whole time, even indoors. I've never quite fit into her idea of family. She once told me that I hover too much. I suppose now I'm hovering over my own grief. There's a plant on the windowsill that Mark bought me 2 years ago. Still alive, miraculously. It doesn't bloom anymore, but it's still green in places, still trying. I guess that's me too. Sometimes I imagine cashing the check, flying to Paris, and drinking coffee alone in some quiet courtyard. Other times, I imagine shredding it and letting the wind carry the pieces. Most of the time, I just stare at it and feel nothing at all. They say the worst part of grief is the first few days. They're wrong. The worst part is when the casseroles stop coming, the messages fade, and everyone assumes you're adjusting, all while your body still wakes up expecting someone else to breathe beside you. Tonight is quiet, too quiet, the kind of quiet where I hear things that aren't there. His cough, his laugh, the drawer he always left open even when I asked him not to. I haven't cried in 3 days, not because I'm okay, because I'm afraid if I start, I won't stop. And then what? I'll be the widow with the big check and no voice left. Maybe I'll deposit it tomorrow, or maybe I'll burn it. I don't know. But I do know this. You don't measure a man's life by what he leaves you. You measure it by how long it takes to feel real when he's gone. And it still doesn't feel real. Daniel came over today, unannounced. He used to do that when he was in college, just show up and raid the fridge, put his muddy shoes on the rug, fall asleep on the couch with the TV on too loud. I didn't mind. Back then, that meant he felt safe here. Today, he knocked instead of using his key, stood straighter than usual, shaved. Amanda wasn't with him. That was the first surprise. The second was how fast he hugged me, like he needed to get it out of the way. "I've been thinking about you nonstop," he said. His voice cracked a little, not enough to break, but enough to sound like it wanted me to think it might. We sat at the table. The check was still there, unmoved, still sealed. He looked at it once, then looked away, then back again, like it had a heartbeat he could hear. He started slow, said he and Amanda were looking into a business opportunity, something about private equity, A startup in healthcare. Disruptive tech. He said it like he'd just learned the phrase yesterday. He used words like scalable, impact-driven, multi-channel. I smiled and nodded. I didn't understand any of it. But what mattered wasn't the pitch. It was the shift in his tone. The moment he said, "It's a chance to build something real, not just for us, but for you too." He reached across the table, held my hand, that same hand that once wrapped around my pinky finger in the hospital the day he was born. That same hand that clung to my sweater when he was 5 and afraid of storms. "If this works out," he said, "you'll never have to worry about anything again. No bills, no hospital forms, no more of this house." He smiled. "You could move in with us. We'll take care of you. You'll have your own room, garden, everything." It sounded beautiful. Not flashy, just possible. A second life. One where I wasn't falling asleep on a couch alone with game shows echoing in the dark. "You always took care of me, Mom," he said. "Let me do it for you now." And that broke something in me. Not because it was manipulative, because I'd waited years to hear it, even if it wasn't real. He told me they were just a few thousand short, that they'd already put in almost everything, that Amanda's parents had helped too, but the investor was pulling out, and without that final chunk, they'd lose the whole deal. He said it like it was now or never. "It's not about money," he added. "It's about the future." I didn't say yes, not at first. I said, "What about the treatment, my appointments?" He nodded, said once the deal closed, they'd cover everything. Said they already looked into private clinics, better ones than I could afford now. "You won't have to sit on plastic chairs anymore, Mom, I promise." And I wanted that. God, I wanted that. To be seen, to be held in a promise again, to be part of something that didn't feel like dying slowly. So I told him I'd think about it. He kissed my forehead and left with a quiet, "Love you, Mom." It almost sounded like the boy I raised. That night, I sat at the table for 2 hours, stared at that envelope, held it in my hands, weighed it like it was a question and I didn't know which answer would break me more. I cashed it the next morning. Amanda sent me a message that afternoon. "Thanks for trusting us. It means a lot. You won't regret this." No heart emoji, no love you, just a message that felt like a receipt. I told myself it would be fine, that I'd ask for updates weekly, that they'd send me paperwork. But they didn't. Not that week, not the next. Daniel texted twice, said they were busy finalizing things, that it was going better than expected. "We'll celebrate soon," he wrote. "Just rest up, okay?" So I did. I sat on the couch, wrapped in that old sweater Mark hated, and told myself that this was what being taken care of looked like, that silence was just part of the process, that love looks different when everyone's tired. But something in my chest kept tapping. Not doubt, not yet. Just a quiet ache that said, "You gave up your safety net, now you better hope they catch you." The strange thing is, the good days didn't feel fake, not at first. After I gave them the money, something shifted. Daniel called more. Amanda even sent me a photo of their dog. "Milo says hi," she wrote. It felt normal, like we'd rounded a corner. Like maybe Mark's death had cracked us all open just enough to let something better in. Daniel came by 3 times that week. He brought groceries, checked the batteries in the smoke alarm, even fixed that loose handle on the drawer that's been wobbly since 2016. It reminded me of when he was little, That age where kids want to help just to be near you, not to fix anything, just to belong. He sat with me longer, watched old episodes of Jeopardy, laughed when I beat him to the answers. He said things like, "It feels good to be home again. I should have visited more when Dad was sick." He apologized without really naming what for, and I accepted it because naming things makes them real, and I wasn't ready for real yet. I didn't ask too many questions, not about the business, not about the money. He offered updates anyway. We're finalizing contracts. The investor loved the pitch. Amanda's working on branding stuff. It all sounded exciting and vague, but I didn't press. I didn't want to sound like I didn't trust him. Amanda even invited me to dinner one night. That shocked me. She set the table for 3, cooked something with quinoa and mushrooms, a recipe from one of those meal kits. It tasted like someone trying hard, and that meant something to me. We drank wine. They toasted to new beginnings. Daniel kissed my cheek. And for a moment, I thought maybe I'd been wrong to worry. Maybe this was the beginning of something good. But there were little things, tiny shifts, barely there moments that made my stomach pull. First, it was the delay in paperwork. I asked about the investment documents. Daniel said, "We're keeping it lean. It's more verbal right now. You know how these things are." I didn't know how these things were, but I nodded like I did. Then, I noticed they weren't posting as much. Usually, Amanda filled her feed with motivational quotes and yoga selfies. Suddenly, it was quiet. Just a story here or there, a dinner, a blurry glass of wine. I told myself they were just busy, building something. Next, the calls got shorter. Not cold, just clipped. Daniel always sounded like he was on his way somewhere. "Hey, Nom, can I call you right back? Quick question, do you still have that blender Dad loved?" Nothing about how I was feeling. Nothing about the check. Nothing about my MRI. I started writing things down, just so I wouldn't forget to ask. I left a voicemail one night, said I was feeling tired again, said the clinic needed to reschedule, and I wasn't sure if that was bad. He didn't reply. Not that night, not the next. When he finally did call, his voice was sugar sweet. "Sorry, Mom, things are just crazy over here, but you're okay, right?" I said I was fine because I didn't want him to hear the ache in my chest, because sometimes you say "I'm fine" just to protect the version of yourself that still hopes they care. One afternoon, I was folding towels and glanced at the envelope again. I had a copy of the check stashed in my drawer. $382,000. I whispered the number out loud, like it was a spell I didn't understand. It didn't feel like I'd given away money. It felt like I'd bought something invisible, a promise with no receipt. Daniel texted that night. "We might take a quick trip soon. A short break before things get intense with the launch. We'll keep you posted." I wrote back, "Where to?" He didn't answer. Not that day. I didn't want to be suspicious. Suspicion feels like betrayal, especially when it's your child. But something inside me, something quiet and old, began to tighten. I remembered a moment from last year. Mark had been in chemo. Daniel came to visit. Mark asked about Amanda. Daniel changed the subject. Later, I found an empty whiskey bottle in the trash. I never mentioned it. Now I wonder how long I've been looking away. Amanda stopped calling. I hadn't noticed it at first. Just a gap in noise. Then I realized she'd gone completely silent. No texts, no dinner invites, no blurry yoga bowls, just absence. I dreamt that night about losing my voice. I was in a room full of people, and I kept trying to scream, but nothing came out. I woke up gasping, alone. The kind of alone that no TV volume can fill. I started rereading their messages, line by line, reading between the lines. So many sentences that started with, "I promise." So many that ended with, "Just trust us." The thing about trust is, it doesn't scream when it's dying. It just stops showing up. I still haven't asked him directly. I don't want to accuse. I don't want to be wrong. But my body knows something my mouth won't say yet. My chest feels heavy in a new way. Not cancer, not grief. Something quieter, colder. The feeling you get when you realize the future you were handed might already been spent. I didn't mean to see the email. I wasn't looking for anything. I was just trying to reschedule my follow-up. The clinic's website wasn't loading right, so I clicked through my tabs. And there it was. Subject line, "Confirm your flight to Nice, France." My heart didn't drop. It just paused, like it was waiting for my brain to catch up. I thought it was spam, but when I opened it, Daniel's name, Amanda's name, 2 tickets, non-refundable, hotel included. Not a business trip, not a founder's retreat, not a pitch session or health summit. A vacation, 5-star hotel, couples massage already booked, sea view suite. Departure in 3 days. I closed the laptop gently, like the truth might break if I moved too fast. I stood in the kitchen, both hands on the counter, and waited for the floor to feel real again. That's when it clicked. All the missing pieces, the late replies, the vague updates, the quick text about taking a break before things get intense. I remembered Amanda's toast to new beginnings, and I finally understood. I wasn't part of that future. I was just the fuel. I checked the account. Half the balance was gone, transferred to a limited liability company with a name I didn't recognize. No paper trail, no contract, just a clean withdrawal. The bank said the authorization was mine. Of course it was. I'd signed the form. I just didn't know I was signing away the last safety net I had. That night, he texted, "Love you, Mom. Can't wait for you to see what we're building." I stared at the screen. His words felt sticky, too smooth, like candy melting into a lie. I didn't respond. The next day, I went to pick up my medication. The copay was higher. My coverage had shifted. I hadn't realized. Daniel had said he'd handle the logistics. I nodded and let him, because I wanted to believe that someone still had me. I drove home without turning the radio on. No sound, no noise, just the hum of realization building in my chest. I had trusted my health, my body, to someone who was planning a luxury vacation with the woman who once told me I was too emotional to be around. Amanda never liked me, not in the overt way, never screamed or slammed doors, but in the polite, smiling kind of dislike that makes you feel insane. She once told me Daniel needed more space to grow into himself, that being an only child made him too soft, and I didn't help. Mark said she'd come around, but he said that about everyone. I started digging. I printed the itinerary, the hotel confirmation, the airline receipt. I opened the drawer where I kept their past messages, digital copies, screenshots, texts that used to make me smile. And I read every line again, not because I needed to see the lie, because I needed to see how well they had built it. He hadn't rushed me. He'd taken his time. He waited until I smiled again, until I said, maybe I'll try that new recipe next week. He waited until I felt safe, and then he made his move. It was Amanda who sealed it. I remembered her words from the wine night. "You'll never have to sit in another plastic chair again, Ellen," said with a hand on my arm. Said like kindness, but what she meant was, "You've given us enough. Now step aside." That night, I walked into Mark's closet. Everything was still where he left it. His ties, the scent of cedar, a folded scarf I'd given him on our 25th anniversary. I sat on the edge of the bed and held his coat in my lap, the one he wore when he took me out to dinner in the snow, even though he hated cold. It still smelled like him, like soap and patience. I whispered, "I don't think he loves me the way you did." The room didn't answer, but I didn't need it to. I started printing more emails, transfer logs, the business registration for the LLC. Not because I planned to confront them, not yet. Because I wanted to see the betrayal, hold it, name it, make it real. Trust doesn't always shatter. Sometimes it dissolves, quietly, elegantly, like paper in water. I told myself maybe they'd explain, maybe there was a reason, maybe they'd surprise me, come clean, say sorry, beg for understanding. But even that hope felt too polished now, too rehearsed. Amanda didn't text again. Daniel stopped calling, stopped asking about my scans, stopped anything. 3 days later, he called from a lounge, sent me a photo of the sunrise, said, "We're boarding soon, miss you already." I stared at the picture. It looked like a stock photo, beautiful, clean, fake. I didn't respond. I just pressed save to folder. That night, I printed another copy of everything, put it in a second envelope, labeled it freezer. Another went under the floorboard, another in the car. I wasn't hiding them. I was protecting myself from forgetting, from forgiving too soon, from any part of me that might try to rewrite what I now understood. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a plan, a script, a stage performance, with me cast as the quiet, trusting widow. They rehearsed it beautifully, but the curtains are coming down now, and I'm still here, with the copies, with the facts, with the voice I thought I'd lost. They landed on a Thursday. I knew, not because Daniel told me, but because Amanda posted a picture of her feet in the sand, her toenails still painted that rich wine red I paid for last Christmas. The caption said, "Back to reality." But her version of reality didn't include hospitals, unpaid bills, or quiet grief, just curated beaches and overpriced cocktails. Daniel didn't call that day, or the next. I waited anyway, made tea, sat in the chair by the phone like I was auditioning for a part I'd already played too well, the waiting mother. He finally texted on Sunday, "Crazy jet lag. Can we catch up this weekend?" I stared at the message, typed, "Sure," erased it, typed, "Of course," erased that too, then finally sent one word, "Okay." The truth was, I'd already started collecting more. I had requested records from the shell company, not because I thought they'd send them, but because I wanted a paper trail that showed I'd asked. I logged calls, noted missed ones, tracked Amanda's social media for inconsistencies. Every photo became a clue, every silence a data point. Amanda posted about gratitude, mindfulness, and legacy, The same woman who couldn't look me in the eye at dinner, now quoting Brené Brown like scripture. I printed everything, labeled folders with Sharpie, finances, media, calls, personal history. I became my own lawyer, calm, methodical, precise. But I didn't confront, not yet. Because confrontation is for people who still think the other person might care. I wasn't interested in performance anymore. Let them think I was still asleep, still grieving, still hopeful. They had no idea I knew. And that's the power of silence. It gives you room to move. Daniel came by that weekend, brought flowers, white lilies, funeral flowers. I almost laughed. He kissed my cheek. "You look good, Mom," I said. A lie, I was fasting on purpose, letting the hunger keep me sharp. He offered to help with bills, said they were waiting on a wire transfer, said things were lining up. I nodded, like that made sense, like I hadn't already seen the bank alert. New registration, BMW, Amanda's name. He made coffee, said it smelled like Dad used to make it. I smiled. Let him sit in Mark's chair. Let him feel like the son he used to be. He talked about expansion, about scaling, said words like brand equity and round two. I bit the inside of my cheek to stop from laughing. I asked if they needed anything. He paused. "We're okay, for now." I offered leftovers. He refused. I packed them anyway, labeled them, watched him walk out with the same Tupperware I'd seen Amanda post about 3 days earlier. Our new baby finally arrived. The car, black leather, GPS still wrapped in plastic. He didn't notice I was watching. When he left, I locked the door, not out of fear, out of closure. That night, I laid the folders across the table, sorted them by theme, not date. Betrayal doesn't always happen in order. I recorded a voice memo. No tea, no distractions, just my breath. He doesn't know, but I do, and soon so will they. I backed it up twice, one to the cloud, one to a USB drive hidden behind Mark's books. He always said, "Keep a spare key." This wasn't to... He always said, "Keep a spare key." This wasn't to get back in. This was to never be locked out again. I started drafting letters. Not sentimental, legal. I called Nadine, used to work county clerk's office. She knew someone who knew someone else. By Monday, I had options. By Tuesday, I had a plan. I didn't speak a word of it to Daniel, and I wouldn't. Let them plan another trip. Let Amanda post more filtered joy. Let them think the world still belonged to them. The ground beneath them was shifting. They just didn't feel it yet. But I did, and that was enough. I waited until the end of the month. It was quiet, a Wednesday. Late enough that no one would answer calls, early enough that systems were still online. The first thing I did was call the bank. I told them I wanted to revoke authorization from the business account Daniel had attached to mine. The woman on the line sounded confused. "You've been a primary co-signer since February." I said, "That changes today." I withdrew everything that remained, moved it to an account in my name, only mine. No access, no cards, no trail. When I hung up, the house didn't feel triumphant. It just felt still, lighter, not happy, just less heavy. The next day, I met Nadine in person. Brown suit, no makeup, firm handshake, my kind of woman. She slid a folder across the table. Inside, the documents. Revocation of power of attorney, asset declaration, notarized summary of unauthorized transfers. It felt cold, clean, necessary. She asked if I wanted to press charges. I said not yet, but I wanted every corner swept, every bolt tightened, because Daniel was going to lie, and Amanda was going to smile while he did it. That weekend, I messaged him, "Let's meet, just us." He replied in 10 minutes, "Of course, I miss you." He always said the right thing. It just took me 60 years to stop believing that mattered. We met at the diner where he took me for Mother's Day 3 years ago. I wore the scarf Mark gave me on our last Christmas. Soft, cream-colored wool, like a promise you can still wear. Daniel looked tired, scratch on his wrist, maybe a paper cut, maybe the universe drawing blood in tiny places. He hugged me too tight, sat too close, ordered my usual like a party trick he couldn't wait to perform. I let him. Over pancakes, I slid an envelope across the table. 1 page, no emotion. Just, "This is no longer yours." He opened it, read, laughed. "What's this?" I said, "It's a boundary." His smile faltered, just for a second. "Is this about Monaco?" I said nothing. Didn't blink, didn't nod. Let the silence fill in the gaps. "Mom, you don't understand. This is for us. This was always for you." "Don't lie to me," I said, calm, steady. "You already spent what was mine. Don't spend my name, too." He looked around the diner, lowered his voice. "You're making a mistake." "No," I said. "I made it already. This is me fixing it." He pushed the paper back. I pushed it forward. He stood. I stayed seated. People watched, but no one moved. They didn't need to, because I wasn't crying. I wasn't shouting. I wasn't begging. I was done. He walked out without the envelope, left it on the table like it was too hot to hold. I stayed, paid in cash, tipped well, wrapped my scarf tighter on the walk home. Filed the receipt under control. That night, Amanda messaged me, "Why are you doing this to us?" I didn't reply. I blocked her, because if they were us, then I was never part of it. And I refuse to be an outsider in my own life. The next morning, I mailed backup documents to my lawyer, 1 copy to the bank, 1 to the business registry, not to punish, to protect. I wasn't burning bridges. I was building fences. Let them stand outside now. Let them knock if they dare. The notice went out on a Tuesday, just before noon. I filed the complaint formally, not out of vengeance, but clarity. I used my legal name, my married name, the one that had signed home loans, school slips, and insurance claims for 35 years. By Wednesday, Daniel got his copy. He didn't call. Amanda did. Blocked number, straight to voicemail. Her voice was shaky. She didn't cry, but she wanted me to hear her near it, wanted me to believe she was the victim. I didn't save the message. I let it play once. Let the words hang in the kitchen air like fog. "We didn't mean to hurt you." But I've learned people never mean the cut, only that you hold still long enough for it to go deep. By Friday, the audit began, not by me, by the bank, because their system flagged unusual activity, because silence, like paper, always leaves a trail. The call with the investigator lasted 40 minutes. I gave them everything: files, screenshots, receipts. Each time I opened a document, it hurt less. Not because the betrayal mattered less, but because now it had edges, and edges can be filed, boxed, labeled. Daniel emailed me. Subject line, "Please." Body, "Can we talk?" I didn't reply. I forwarded it to my lawyer. Amanda posted a quote on her Instagram. "Some people try to break your soul when they can't use your love anymore." The comments flooded in. Hearts, fire emojis, sympathy. I didn't respond. I took a screenshot, filed it under public perception. The whispers started. Screenshots of group chats, text messages from friends. "Did you hear about Daniel? Wasn't his mom in the hospital?" People talk, even in silence, especially in silence. Monday, he showed up at my door. I didn't answer. I watched from behind the curtain, a woman-shaped shadow in her own house. He stood there 10 minutes, then walked to the car, sat for another 5, drove off. I went back to the dining table, filed another note, contact attempt in person. Later that week, we sat in a room, conference table, legal pads, someone typing minutes. Daniel looked smaller, Amanda tighter, polished but cracking. I wore navy, hair up, no jewelry, nothing they gave me. They apologized, vague, passive. We never meant. Things just got complicated. We were going to tell you. I asked one question. Do you deny the documents? They didn't. My lawyer slid the agreement across the table. They hesitated, then signed. Not because they believed in justice, because they were out of moves. After the meeting, Amanda tried to speak. We were just scared. I looked at her fully. I said, "I'm not," I said, and walked past her like she wasn't history, just furniture I didn't want anymore. That night, I opened the wine I'd been saving, not for celebration, for confirmation. One glass, just one. Then I packed the documents, every screenshot, every receipt, sealed it in a box, labeled, closed. Put it on the top shelf of the guest closet, not to forget, but because I didn't need to look anymore. Truth doesn't have to scream, not when it's written down, and mine is, every page. The first morning I woke up without the weight, I didn't know what to do with my hands. No documents to check, no calls to return, no emails to dread, just sunlight and stillness. I sat in the kitchen with a warm cup of coffee, not reheated, not rushed. The window above the sink was open. The breeze moved the curtain slightly, like the house was breathing again. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was sitting in someone else's life. I planted herbs in the back garden that afternoon, basil, thyme, lavender. I pressed the roots into the soil with bare hands, let the dirt get under my nails. Every inch of that soil felt like proof that something could be buried and still grow. I moved into the guest room, the smaller one, better light, softest sheets, no ghosts. Because I wasn't a guest anymore, I was home. One day, I walked into town, bought a lamp I didn't need, yellow, soft and round like a lemon in the sun. The woman at the store asked if I was decorating. I said, yes, for myself. She smiled like she understood. I found a second-hand bookstore tucked between a consignment shop and an old bakery. The owner smelled like cinnamon and wore 5 cardigans stacked together. She said I could come in anytime, even just to sit, so I did. I picked a table in the back corner and read. Not news, not court documents, stories, the kind that make your heart go quiet. I made tea every afternoon at 3, sat on the porch, listened to the birds, the wind, my own breath. No one interrupted. No one needed me to fix or fund or forgive. I wasn't angry. I wasn't triumphant. I was just still. Some days, I missed Daniel. Not the man who lied, The boy with scraped knees and grass stains who used to draw rockets for me. I let myself miss him, without guilt, without softness. Missing doesn't mean welcoming. It just means you remember you loved. And I had. I started writing again. Not a journal, a story. About a woman who lost her son to something slow and invisible. She didn't get him back, but she got herself. I wrote late into the night sometimes, not because I had to, because I wanted to, because the words felt like home too. My doctor called after my last scan, said the growth hadn't changed, stable, quiet. I thanked her, hung up, cried for 5 minutes, then I went outside and watered the lavender. I didn't tell Daniel, or Amanda. They don't know where I live now, not because I'm hiding, because I don't owe them this peace. I owe it to myself. I framed a photo of Mark and me from our 30th anniversary. We're laughing, not smiling, laughing, loud, unapologetic. It sits on the bookshelf, right next to the fiction, right where it belongs. Sometimes I talk to him out loud, tell him what's blooming, what I'm cooking, what I've reclaimed. I think he hears me, and if he doesn't, it's still mine to say. I haven't seen Daniel in 6 months, Amanda even longer. Their names don't sting anymore. They just pass, like weather. I made a rule. No more explaining. No more waiting for someone to understand why I did what I did. That story belongs to me now, all of it. And this quiet, steady, bright little life, it's not what I planned, but it's mine, and I don't flinch when I wake up in it anymore. I didn't write this for him, not for Amanda, not for the ones who clapped when I stayed quiet, and not for the ones who disappeared when I didn't. I wrote it for myself, because silence is heavy, and stories, when unspoken, don't go away. They rot. They curl into your bones, change the shape of how you stand, make you smaller so slowly you don't notice until someone asks you why you're whispering. I'm not whispering anymore. I tell this now because I can, because I've earned the right to take up space with the truth. And the truth is, I loved, I gave, I trusted, and it wasn't enough to keep them kind, but it's enough for me to stay whole. There are days I wonder, what might have happened if I'd said no sooner? If I hadn't handed over the check? If I'd looked closer at the timelines, the lies, the eyes that wouldn't meet mine? But regret is just another thief, and I've had enough taken. I don't forgive easily anymore, and I don't apologize for that. Forgiveness isn't healing if it costs you your backbone. My spine is intact now, bent maybe, but unbroken. People say, but he's your son, as if biology excuses betrayal. As if blood washes clean what intent soaked in rot. He made a choice. So did I. I chose me. I chose quiet. I chose clarity. I chose not to chase people who walk away holding my name like a trophy they never earned. Somewhere out there, Daniel is telling a version of this story. In his version, I'm probably bitter, ungrateful, old. That's fine. Let them have their fiction. I have my freedom. I didn't record this for sympathy, or rage, or applause. I posted it because someone needed to hear a woman say, I walked away, I stayed away, and I didn't die without them. There's a power in not explaining, in letting the truth sit where it falls. No defense, no excuse. And if you're listening, if you're sitting in a small kitchen with the lights off, holding your own silence like a wound, I want you to know something. You're not broken. You're rebuilding. You're not too late. You're right on time. And you don't need to prove your pain to make it real. You don't have to write it out like I did, but you can. You're allowed. Your truth doesn't need permission. I'm not angry anymore. I'm not even hurt. I'm aware. I'm awake. And finally, I am free. I am not the woman who begged. I am not the mother who funded someone else's betrayal. I am not the widow they thought would fold. I am Ellen Mitchell. I am 60 years old, and I am nobody's victim. Not anymore. If this story touched something inside you, leave a comment. You don't have to say much, just enough to remind another woman she's not alone. And if you want to hear more truths like this, subscribe. We tell stories here that were never meant to stay buried.